Welcome to 3 Good Reasons Why. This edition examines why the why question is a key to a fuller understanding of everything that we seek to understand. Reason 1. The why question is a key to a fuller understanding of things because we cannot make sense of things without the why question. We cannot find the meaning and purpose of our existence and experiences without asking the why question. Since meaning making is what human intelligence is primarily engaged in, it is not possible to make sense of anything without asking and answering the why question. It's the why question alone that gives us the meaning and purpose of life and helps us make sense of everything we experience in life. But before we get into the meat of it, let's skim through a necessary prelude that will effectively induct us into the why question relevance. It's a given that we humans are not capable of making our life work without understanding. And we cannot and do not understand anything in this world without applying our intelligence. Understanding is a product of our intelligence. And we make sense of things by applying our imagination, intuition, and emotional intelligence just as much as the rational intelligence. We cannot apply our intelligence without asking questions. Questions are the tools of intelligence with which we investigate and understand all that we seek to know and understand. The what, who, when, and where of most things are relatively easier to understand compared to the how and why of them. The what, who, when, and where of things are self-evident in most cases. But it takes science to find answers to the how and why questions or the how and why of things. How matter works in the space-time continuum is what science largely helps us to understand. In many instances, the how and why are interchangeable too. For example, what is an atom? What is it made of? Where are atoms found? And how they work also refers to why they work the way they do. However, even our science is incapable of answering why atoms exist and why they exist in the way they do. So until we understand the why of things, our understanding about things are incomplete. That is the missing piece of the puzzle we humans are here to deal with. Reason 2. The why question is a key to a fuller understanding of things because we need an explanation for everything, not just a description of things. Since everything has a cause, it's the why question alone that helps us understand the cause of things. It's the why question alone that gives us explanatory answers as opposed to the descriptive answers that science gives us. The why question explains things rather than describe them by giving us reasons for the cause or the effect that we subject to our investigation. While what, who, when, and where give us a description of things, it's the why alone that explains them. The why gives us reasons why they come the way they come. The how satisfies the why of things to some extent, if not to the full extent. For example, we today know how the gases and particles in the atmosphere scatters the short blue waves of light more than any other colors in the spectrum, and how the blue pigment in the S-cones in our eye absorb them to make the sky appear blue to human eye. So, the how of the phenomenon explains the why of it in this example, doesn't it? The how explains the mechanics of it and answers the why or both the cause and effect of the phenomenon. The why question is what explains the purpose and meaning behind the cause and effect of things. And that's why It's only the why question that explains the reasons why of everything we can think of. We know, for example, what is water, what it is made of, where it is found, how useful it is, what it is used for, how it quenches our thirst, how it works as a cleanser, so on and so forth. But we do not know the larger why of water. In other words, we do not know why water comes the way it comes in the first place. We know why and how two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen combine to form the resultant compound called water. But we do not have answer for the larger why of water. What does that mean? Why water has got to be the way it comes as. In other words, we are clueless about the why of the physics and chemistry of water, though we know the how of the physics and chemistry of it. We hardly know why certain elements exist positively or negatively charged, which makes them unstable in the first place, which leads to their bonding. Now, that's an example of the larger why question of things, which is left to our imagination, interpretation, and intuition. We cannot understand water just by seeing it, touching it, drinking it, and experiencing it. Existence is evidence that demands an explanation, not just description and definition. We often limit ourselves to description, definition, and the workings of things. Explanation goes further deep. What exists can be explained or interpreted by putting two and two together. We make sense of things by interpreting pieces of information, not just by defining and describing them. Unless we plug into our ability to interpret, we do not quite understand things that exist and experience. It's the why of things that meaning-making, explanation, and interpretation refer to. Reason 3. The why question is the key to a fuller understanding of things, because everything apparently has a cause, an origin that demands an investigation into. And no other question other than the why question deals with the cause and origin of everything we experience in life and everything that goes into the making of this world. Everything we deal with and experience in life has a cause and origin, and it's the why alone that takes us to the cause and origin of things. The cause and origin differ from phenomenon to phenomenon and entity to entity. The cause and origin of nothing, for example, is different from the cause and origin of something. And that's why any answer that begins with because is an answer to the why question. Science answers to some extent what life is and what its characteristics are. It answers how we get to take birth, how we get to have life, and how we can manage to stay alive and so on. But science cannot and do not answer why we have life, why human babies can't come out of nature straight rather than through reproductive process. Why do we come as males and females? And why do we have intelligence at all, while other successfully surviving animals do not have it? Our science does not explain why entropy exists, though it describes what it is. So, our self-realization and understanding of the whole world shall stay incomplete until we answer the why question of things to our satisfaction. Though science conveniently brushes away the why question because it finds itself ill-equipped and unable to answer it, philosophy, metaphysics, and theology are centered on the why question. It remains an open-ended question because the scientific tools and instruments used for scientific inquiries of the nature, mechanics, and dynamics of the physical world are found ineffective in finding answers to the why question. This is the reason why We have many philosophies, religions, thoughts, opinions, ideas, art and literature forms and styles. We have only one science that is rigid, absolute, and ambiguous and unchallengeable, whereas the why question goes deeper, wider, and sharper for answers that remain debatable, challengeable, and open to continual enquiry, corrections, and refinement. It always gives us scope for coming up with multiple speculative and probable and theoretical answers rather than one single answer settled once for all. The why of things is what meaning making and thinking chiefly is all about. And with that, we wrap up this edition of 3 Good Reasons Why. Thank you for your time. You're welcome to feedback and take this conversation forward with your comments.